Welcome back to C9 Spotlight, presented by the United States Air Force. Joining us today is Coach James from the Cloud9 CSGO team. Now, for viewers out there that don't know, what is your day-to-day like as a coach? This is not your average, everyday, regular job.
Day-to-day as a coach is getting the team ready for the day, setting goals, as well as maintaining the long-term goals of things that you've learned. So for our team, we've been together for a little bit more than a month now, and some of that has been off time. It gets a little bit complex. So it's always about like making sure we're learning at the best rate possible.
It's a high-performance lifestyle.
Yeah, so we're doing scrimmages, doing stuff in server, reviewing games from the past, and just kind of like scheduling our rest time so people are performing as best as possible at all times.
Makes sense.
So it's no secret that the Cloud9 team was underperforming earlier this year, but you had been a part of Cloud9 long before you came on this particular time. What was that process like of you coming back to the team?
So before coming back to Cloud9, it was a while. I don't even remember. I think it was like 2017 for maybe like 8 months that I was with Cloud9 as an analyst. So that's much less of a hands-on role as an analyst in Counter-Strike. It's kind of like on an as-team basis, but you're just giving information and then the coach or the players use it whenever they want. There's no guarantee that anything will ever be used. So, but a lot of my friends were on the team at the time, and I like wholeheartedly wanted them to do a good job. So whenever they were at like a tournament, abroad, I would stay up at weird hours and watch their games and always be trying to do stuff for them. So transitioning back into the role was, they lost a coach, and I was a coach on another team, and my contract was ending, so it's kind of serendipitous. It's just a timing thing.
Nice. So what was the most thrilling part about that? Working with your friends again, or kind of stepping into a new role?
Stepping into a new role is good. With this team, obviously it's a whole new roster except for Automatic. I knew Tim from before, and I knew Valens from before, Soham. So there was an aspect of familiarity, and then some of the other players, we obviously all know each other in the scene, but I haven't worked with them directly as much. I think the most exciting thing, though, is to be able to set a culture from the start, right? Because there's no core of this team. You can kind of like do things to make sure that it moves in the direction you want, rather than having to like break through the friction of old stuff that was going on.
And along those lines, since the team really has only been together for a handful of weeks, but had a really strong performance at Blast LA, and what do you attribute that to? Is that, just great initial chemistry, you've got these veteran players, or is it, fantastic coaching?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I would say that it's probably less coaching, right? Because it's initial stuff, like how much impact could I actually have initially. Obviously some, I'm always gonna downplay that because a coach should never be the thing that everyone points to. I think that it's maturity of the approach. So we have guys like, everyone on the team has a very mature approach, even the young guy TenZ. So he's surprised me a lot with his mindset and he's very perceptible. And I think it's just our mature approach. We like to talk about things, and nobody ever dominates conversations. Everyone needs to be respected. And I think that's like a big thing, is maturity of approach, and I think that kind of fosters a chemistry within the team.
And you're professionals, and it sounds like the team is treating it as such.
Yeah, and obviously we have like insanely skilled players on our team. Like that's, like Cloud9 went out and spent money on these top tier players, and I've already been overly surprised at those things, so it's been nice.
It's really clear to see that there's a lot of introspection, from yourself, but also the team about how they live their daily life and how they're playing the game. So on that note, what would you say is your biggest strength as a unit?
I kind of got at it before, but I think it's the ability to talk about difficult things and like be able to point fingers at each other and to have those conversations in a productive manner, right? Like that's kind of my job, is to like feel how things are going and mediate those, as well as bring those conversations up, because at the end of the day, like, a lot of people in gaming don't really like to talk about those kind of things, right?
A lot of people take things personally.
Or just humans in general. It's hard to talk about difficult topics, but those are usually the ones that are most productive if you can talk about them.
Do you feel like that's because the goal is greater than the individual in this team?
Yeah.
I feel like people are willing to not take things personally because they're all aligned in what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and you can't get it done by yourself anyway. Like you can always learn from somebody else's thought. Like even if, like, let's say my approach is wrong, like what if we didn't know that beforehand? Like we didn't know why, right? But if we talk it out, try things and test it out in a server, then that usually leads to some like higher level understanding, and then everyone will do stuff in an unspoken manner, and it'll be like quicker, right? Like I remember in 2015, Fnatic was super dominant, and it almost looked like they would do things so quickly that there's no way that they were talking about it.
It was premeditated.
Yeah, it was like they called it like a hive mind approach. So not that we're trying to move towards that, but I think that allows us to move towards that.
So we talk about a lot of the things that you're trying to work towards. I'd love to know what are some of the main things, or the main thing that you're trying to work on, or you think that could be a weakness, or is just a main goal to develop as a team?
Main goal would be playing it in a consistent manner. Yep. So there's many ways to win a round or a match in Counter-Strike, and some of them are gimmicky. And like we could always, like I could just come in and practice and be like, all right, let's learn these 10 gimmicks for this map today, and like you can like eke out rounds like that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we want to be, top team, top 5, top 10. We want to move there, and we want to be able to stay there. And I think the only way that you can stay there is if you have a certain consistent style, right? If you have like a high quality style that, can't be beat by gimmicks, and you're not using things like that all the time.
Yeah.
Now, you offer some praise to one of your players, TenZ, and he's one of the most renowned players in CSGO. What's your assessment of him as a player in terms of his potential and what he can offer to a team starting from ground zero like you are right now?
He's surprised me a lot. So I'd never played with him on a team before this team, or like heard him talk in game. But a lot of people will be like, oh, he's young, and they're gonna assume that he has all of these like impediments or things that he's bad at because he's young. And a lot of those things, like communication and listening and problem solving and talking to other people, are not weaknesses of him. Like obviously all humans can work on those kind of things regardless if it's in a gaming context or not. But I think like Cloud9 and our team like really are fortunate to have him because of that. I think he's beyond his years in a lot of capacities, and he has like a good energy about him. Like when the going gets tough in the middle of a scrimmage day, he's a lot of the time a guy who will just like have that like kind of like Energizer Bunny battery and like
so
kind of get it. It really is. It's great. So I'm happily surprised, and I'm not just saying that because here we are. Like he actually is like very remarkable in those ways.
So we also crowdsourced some questions from Twitter, and FishZ wants to know how you plan on getting the team ready for the Arctic Invitational, the next event that you will be attending.
So we're going to be doing a boot camp in Madrid in Spain because that's where Mixwell's from. So like obviously we could go many places in Europe. The ping's good everywhere there.
Sure.
But we wanted to keep him happy, right? Because if he's happy, then our team's going to play better.
Yeah.
So we're going to have like a 2.5 week boot camp ahead of that. And we're trying to book scrims with all of the top teams and play in a consistent manner. Like I said before, we're still like pretty much putting down our foundation. Like we're within 2 months of being together as a team. But specifically for that event, we're gonna do prep on the teams that are there. The 2 of the teams that are there are in the top 10. Crazy and Furia are both really strong teams. And in my opinion, whenever you're playing Counter-Strike and you have like this important team, you should stray away from expectations. You should just go into it, play the game, focus on the round at hand, do all the stuff. Like just like win every like round, right? Don't worry about all of these outside forces. And I think that that's what we're doing at that LAN. And it's nice because it's a smaller event.
So as you guys are prepping to head off to this event, obviously the Star Ladder CS Major is kicking up really soon. In fact, this week, we wanted to kind of get your predictions. Is it going to be Team Liquid just dominating that event, or do you think there are other teams that we should be keeping our eyes on?
I think you should keep your eyes on all teams. I mean, Liquid's amazing. The way that they play is kind of the style we're trying to go for, which is very teamwork based, and like it's not cookie cutter approach. It's very hard to anti-strat Liquid. Like their strength is in the late game, but just to get back to your question, I honestly think anyone can win it. I think there's many teams. If I had to place a percentage, obviously Liquid would be the highest. But I think this major will actually be a lot more fun to watch because we don't have the AUG meta. Like for people who don't watch Counter-Strike, there was a gun for the counter-terrorist, the defensive side, that was just super OP at the time.
No spread.
Yeah, like you would just have like these players who shouldn't even be viable in pro teams anymore, and now they're viable because of this gun.
Yeah.
So I think the last major is actually really boring to watch because of that. And I actually think that the competition at the last major was not as stacked as this one. I think you're going to see a lot of what people think are upsets. I wouldn't view them as upsets. I also think that the economy system will make games tighter. But I also think the economy system makes it such that the winning team more often than not will win. Yes. So even in BO1s, it'll be better. So I think this will be a really cool major to watch.
That org meta reminded me of like the broken Tech 9 meta when people used to walk on the sites
when
and
Olaf
just
had 30 kills on Inferno with only a Tech 9.
Yeah, and he just rushed the same
It's
site.
like, great.
So, you know, we talk about other teams, right? You talked about how you as Cloud9 would like to play like Liquid. So how much are you as a coach actually looking at other teams? Or how do you split the time between looking at your team, fine-tuning things, trying to introduce new elements, and looking outside of that for inspiration or for things to even emulate yourself?
That's a good question. As a coach, you're always wanting, or even as a player, you're always wanting to know what other people are doing just to see how other people solve problems, right? That's all it is like, hey, there's this area of the map, we want to take control of it early, and if we're having problems with that in practice, or if we feel like there could be a better approach, we think about it ourselves, and then I could go watch other games and look for that as well. But you said that we want to play like Liquid. That's not exactly what I said. I was just saying they have like a repeatable style.
Okay.
Right? Like if you were to watch 20 rounds of how they play, they don't really look similar in how it plays out in total. Like maybe the first 15 seconds will look similar among a few of them, but it's kind of like an adaptive, like dynamic style where you're just like rolling with the punches.
Do you feel like, just to add on, do you feel like that's because of like really strong fundamentals that they have, like the foundation, and they can sort of embellish on that or
and individual understandings of the game.
Yeah.
So the only way you can play like that is if everybody on the team individually can think through situations and like be adaptive with each other.
Independently come to a similar solution.
Yeah,
right?
so that's why like team learning is the most important thing if you want to be the top team.
Right.
Like skill can only take you so far because everyone at the top is pretty skilled.
True enough, indeed. Well, that's it for C9 Spotlight, presented by the United States Air Force. James, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. Good luck at the Arctic Invitational. I mean, we got some great insights from the C9 team. I think a lot of people are quite excited to see what they're going to produce going forward. So we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.